Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam and Life with me, Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, how should Muslims respond to the Boston bombings and Woolwich attack?
A refreshed surge of Islamophobia has hit the streets of America and Europe following attacks on their mainland soil. A few weeks ago, suspected terrorists targeted a Boston Marathon event in which two explosive devices killed 3 and injured over 250 spectators. This was followed by a gruesome attack in Britain, where a serving soldier was attacked and beheaded with a machete by 2 Muslim converts. Both events saw responsive racial attacks by fascist groups such as the EDL, both online and on the streets. A Muslim organization which monitors anti-Muslim abuse received over 200 reports of abuse in the days following the Woolwich attack. This week's Islam and Life asks, how should Muslims respond to the Boston bombings and the Woolwich attack?
This is a question we have to ask, and this is a situation where Muslims living in the West, in the United States of America and European countries, they have to face. Because what is happening now is attacks and terrorism and things that are done in the name of Islam, which are not acceptable. What happened in Boston, what happened in Woolwich, and the way this was covered by the media, and the reaction coming from populist parties and far-right parties is, in fact, all this together is pushing the Muslims sometimes to be on the defensive, sometimes to be just to be in a state of denial, or to try to find a way just to show what Islam is and in which way they have to deal with it. Not only this, there are consequences when it comes to discriminations, when it comes to the political situation in the country. What we see now in the name of terrorism, in the name of the war on terror after September 2001, what we had is populist and sometimes very xenophobic and racist statements everywhere. So how should Muslims react to this? What should be the right answer? Is it only by apologizing or explaining what Islam is, or do we have, or do we need a multi-dimensional response when it comes to what is happening in the West today? These are critical questions, and to answer all these questions I am joined by Raza Kazim from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. Thank you so much for being with us today. You have been following all this, and it's not you have to deal with discriminations when Muslims are facing what in fact is happening in the West, but not only, it's also in Muslim majority countries. And we have all this situation where what happened in Boston when we had Muslims who had to come and just to apologize, and some to explain what these people were not acting in the name of Islam, while they were, or it is said that they were acting in the name of Islam. Exactly the same with converts. And once again, we have all this discussion about it might be that the more dangerous Muslims today are the new convert, and they are involved in networks, and we don't know what exactly is happening. 1 week after what happened in Woolwich, we had exactly the same problem in Paris, where a convert tried to kill a French soldier. So all this with the media coverage is just sending a very bad message, and the negative perception of Islam is there. So I want you to say, okay, from where do we start with this situation when we have the Boston bombing, when we have the Woolwich attack, and what is happened before? How do we have first to look at this situation? What would you, how do you deal with it?
I think we need to start to understand the narrative that is being put forward. And I think when you talk about the response, one of the things that starts to happen immediately after such events is that people are paraded on the news channels and the media and so on. And Muslims are expected at the first instance to actually condemn what has happened. Now, the fact that that is a newsworthy item, that a Muslim is condemning a criminal act, in itself speaks volumes about what the presenters, what the newscasters, and what the media in general, and by extrapolation possibly the public, classify that this individual is, or these individuals are in essence somehow barbaric. That presupposition is there, that they are somehow inhumane in the way, in their outlook on life. So the fact that they are condemning a criminal act is in itself newsworthy. So we need to understand the narrative that is being put forward by this attempt. So in itself it's problematic that somehow Muslims should need to come onto media to do that.
I need clarification on this, because this is a very critical point that you are making here. And I think that, what do you mean by the narrative? At the end of the day, you have someone, it could be two people, one who is killing or trying to kill or just, the bombing in the name of Islam, and explaining this by what you are doing here, it's because what we are doing here is because of what you are doing there, and we are in fact responding to your own violence. So we have this such a statement. It's not new. 7/7 was exactly this in this country. And at the time, the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, was saying, no, this has nothing to do with our foreign policy. We have then a political rhetoric here. Still, you have people doing this in the name of Islam. And what the media are expecting here is for Muslims to come and to say we condemn. So which type of narrative are you talking about here when you say what is wrong in the fact, because it's exactly what I'm asked to do very often, come and condemn. What should we understand in the whole narrative here? What is at stake?
I think we need to understand that the very fact that you coming to condemn on the media is being asked to be done is a newsworthy story, means that it is something different, new from what people are used to. They don't expect Muslims to condemn, to think that inhumane acts are actually inhumane, that criminal acts are criminal. Why do the general public not think that? We've got to understand also that 2 weeks prior to, for example, of the Woolwich attack, we had an incident where I think about an old man, 70-year-old man, was knifed to death coming from prayers. Did that hit the national media? Or did that hit media headlines anywhere in the UK? No. But this one was paraded over and over and over again. And we need to just step back and actually try and look at this rationally, because the moment you try and actually go beyond the propaganda that is being put out and not look at the issues that are coming out of this, we're not actually going to be able to deal with the problem. The first thing, you mentioned 7/7, the fact about 7/7 and this, both times the people who have done those acts have actually commented on the fact that this is related to the foreign policy. They're saying, you do this, and therefore we're doing this. This is not something that the Islamic agenda promotes. It's not something that you can somehow say that it is okay to have that. This is the mentality of what Tony Blair at that time was saying. If people are doing this, we're going to blanket bomb you. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Americans, whether it's drone attacks, whether it's general killings that are mass killings that are going to go on, indiscriminate killings in Iraq and Afghanistan, etc. That is something that is going to continue and happen. And so the agenda of these people is to say, well, if you do it to us, we're going to do it to you. And that agenda is the agenda that is being propagated by 10 Downing Street, before by Tony Blair, now with David Cameron. And that's the kind of oppressive culture that needs to be actually tackled. And Islam and Muslims have a solution, that you cannot go about having taking matters into your own hands.
So let me clarify on two other points. Now we know, someone was, stabbed, a Muslim who was going to pray, and the media were not covering what was happening. We know this. We know that at the end, it's the same everywhere now. It's the same in the United States with the media, the mainstream media stations are covering when Muslims are doing things. And we know this. So knowing that it's going to be covered when Muslims are doing it. So you are questioned. And all the leaders and Muslim scholars and thinkers, when you are in the West, you are asked to come and to condemn and to explain what is happening. So this is one thing, we know that. The second is what you are saying is, in fact, there is something which is not religious in the whole process, which is in fact a political situation where people are saying, you are speaking this way, by saying you are not respecting, international law, so are going to bomb your civilians, for example, which was said by prime ministers, and then the answer is coming. Okay, that's fine. This, in political terms, we can understand this. Still, you have scholars, you have people in the name of Islam who are saying this is the answer. The answer is resistance. So it's a legitimate resistance to oppression. So the Muslims here are in between, okay, we know the media are going to cover something which is negative because it makes money, because it's a political agenda. On the other side, we have Muslims who are nurturing this discourse. In between, what should we do? What should be the position of the Muslims here?
I think we need to kind of differentiate between resistance to occupation and the concept of jihad, because the issue isn't whether jihad is there should be a rightful place for that discourse, for that discussion, and when that should actually take place. The right of resistance to occupation, that is also something that is absolutely right and proper for any people in the world to have, and one of the things that we would say that is something that absolutely right and proper to have. The issue then becomes that, okay, what are you going to do with taking on just simply what happens in within society as something that is put forward as a criminal act? And then you blow this out of all proportion in terms of, oh, this is a terrorist threat, a terrorist activity. If you go again beyond what's been put forward and look, I looked at the video of what was actually happening. That particular individual, for example, in Woolwich, was actually standing there and talking to people and saying, look, I'm sorry that you had to see this, but this is something that is going on in Muslim lands. Now, if that person is not going around hacking everyone to death, this is an individual who has killed an individual and is then not going around killing everyone else. The next point at which he actually attacks, or they attack, or they start to go for it, is when the police arrive. And we know that and we need to look back, okay, why is it that what they've gone for is, one, a soldier, two, the police that have actually arrived and then have been subsequently been shot. And we need to think, okay, this is not something that has gone around as a madman to actually do that. So what is actually going on here behind this? And one of the things that he has said has been about what's been going on in other places. And we also need to look at, there's also been contact between MI5 and him, or one of those individuals. There's also been the issue that there have been, one of those individuals was actually tortured, and that evidence was actually used. So their interaction with the police and with the authorities has been of that nature. So now, when you start to look at, okay, what's actually been going on behind the scenes, there is much more to it than the simple, saying, oh, this is a terrorist threat. This was a criminal act.
But that's an important point. You can't just go in the media just afterward, because this is, for example, every time something is happening, for example, I'm asked, go and speak and say and condemn. As you said, this is what we are used to do, and we need to do it. In one way, we have to come with a voice. Now, can we just stop at this? What you are saying is that...
Can I just challenge that?
Yes.
I don't think we should be expected to condemn this. I
Why?
really don't,
Why not?
because it's something you're assuming that I don't think it's a criminal act. Why is someone who's asking me that?
No, I'm not responding to this question. I'm responding to the question that, is it possible to do this in the name of Islam? So is this Islamic? Why? Because they are hearing voices coming from some very small, tiny Muslim group saying, in the name of Islam, what he is saying could be right. You are killing, we kill. So we have to explain this is not exactly what you started saying by, we should not confuse jihad with this type of resistance or resistance with exactly what you did right now. We have to do it for people who, and we need to repeat this because the media coverage is confusing everything. But the other point that I wanted to make when it comes to, okay, we say it's not enough or we might decide not to do it. Now, do we have to go and to say, okay, let us check the facts, what happened, and you end up having people saying, you know what, it's conspiracy theory, you are not, this is not what you are saying. What you are saying is that check the facts, what happened. To get what at the end? What do we want to reach? What should be the Muslim discourse and positioning when we are dealing now every 3, 4, 6 months with a new controversy and a new attack or bombing? What should we do?
I think it's about understanding what the context is of the situation. We sometimes say that some of these things are coming from far-right groups, as you said in your introduction. And I think the problem is, they're symptoms of the problem. The actual, one of the things I would refer you to is a YouGov poll where 37% of people voted that they would like to reduce the number of Muslims in this country. Now, how exactly are they proposing to do that when there are 3.5 million Muslims in this country? Now, the options open that the way that it could potentially happen is you're talking about mass deportation, you're talking about ethnic cleansing, you're talking about genocide. So how exactly is it? Now, when 37% in a YouGov poll have actually said something along those lines, this is a problem of where society is heading. And it's about holding a mirror up to the society and saying, this is what is going on. The problem actually exists in the structure of the society. It exists in the way that policing actually takes place. It exists in the government, in the way that political personalities come on and make out that somehow the problem exists within the Muslim community, rather than actually addressing the structure of how the society is the one that is at has a problem. We've had situations where, soon after the Woolwich attack, Boris Johnson was coming on and saying what kind of Islamic practices we are going to allow in universities. He was making comments about mumbo-jumbo Sharia. What kind of narrative is he putting out about something that Muslims hold closely regarding this? And it's again stereotyping, it's again demonizing. When Jack Straw came out against women who wear the niqab, well, what was going on there? Again, minister in government is actually taking on the most vulnerable people in society, demonizing them and addressing those. Now, if that same thing of the right of women to wear whatever they want, the feminist kind of angle was actually put out, where were the feminists, for example, in actually defending the right of those women to wear what they want to wear? And it's something that needs to actually be looked at in a wider kind of context.
I completely agree, and I think that what you are just saying now is not only the populist. All the names, Jack Straw, Boris Johnson, they are in the mainstream political parties, and they are nurturing this. Not them only, but this is something that we can see everywhere in Europe. Having said that now, and we know it's happening, we know now that, for example, having this type of discourse and this vision of Islam, what you have in some countries, 60% to 75% of the people are seeing Islam as a threat or Islam as a religion of violence. Okay. What is on our side? What should the Muslims do? Because we can sit and blame, all these people who are instrumentalizing the Islamic threat, so to speak, and say, okay, we know why you are doing this. It's for electoral reasons, geostrategy, and a vision in the, it could help you to have a specific policy in the Middle East. Now, here and in Europe, what should be, should the Muslims, once again, just play the victims, or shall we do something which is resisting? How can we resist this?
I think it goes back to actually talking about strengthen. You need to strengthen organisations, Muslim organisations that are standing independent of the government and actually challenging what's going on. So, for example, the Islamic Human Rights Commission actually took on the government in terms of the body scanners that were taken on, and at the airports and so on. And that was something that was not just affecting Muslims who were going through these airports, it was affecting people from other faiths or no faiths, and whether they should be body scanned in that way. And as a result of that legal challenge, those body scanners have now been removed because of what the Islamic Human Rights Commission has done. Now, we need to think about that what other organizations like ours and that need to actually be strengthened in terms of resources that are provided, in terms of time that is provided, in terms of attention that is provided, in order for people to actually feel empowered as to what they need to do.
But to do what exactly?
So, for example, we put out a letter to the police commissioner saying, right, you need to go around and actually protect, following the Woolwich incident, the Muslim centres. That if you do not do this, there will be issues that will come up as a result of it. Centres in particular will be attacked and so on and so forth. The patrols need to be increased. Did they do that? No. It was a public relations exercise letter that was sent back. Now, if Muslims start to actually think about what is it that we need to do, look at the letters that we're putting out. We publish this on our website. Take this and go down to the local commanders, borough commanders, up and down within London and up and down the country, and say, this is what we expect. Otherwise, we expect, something like this could potentially happen. What are you doing to protect us? It's about recognizing our rights and recognizing something needs to be done. Now, however, having said this, it's easy enough to say this. The problem is, people often feel, if I tell the police, they're not going to do anything. What are they going to do? And we've got examples of where the police don't do this, but it's about keeping up that pressure. And people in themselves have often expressed anti-Muslim hatred in the way that they've gone about it. If I can quote you an example where in Hammersmith at 8 o'clock in the evening, a mother and daughter was actually standing, and some people came out of the club, some girls came out of the club and started abusing the mother because she was wearing the niqab. And this is something that started to happen, and the girl was actually, the Muslim girl resisted against those girls, and she was actually taken to the police station, and then she actually got locked up rather than the people who had been handcuffed, and so on. So this is a problem where the people who are calling the police Muslims are the ones that have been targeted.
Thank you so much. I think that what you are trying to do is your commission and on human rights, but also upstream is a very important point. We need to understand the context, we need to understand the environment, that we can't just react and come and apologize and respond by condemning and not keeping in mind something that you said, that it's as if for Muslims is not a crime, or they are not crimes, and this is very important to differentiate between explaining where Islam stands and Muslims stand, and this apologetic positioning in the media. And the second thing which is important is to be involved within the society and to get a sense of the big political picture that is with what is happening in the society, and also to be active in institution. And the word that you were referring to, which is important, institutionalizing the resistance and the presence of citizens in the society with institutions that are have some expertise in how to deal with such issues, is something which is important. Thank you for that. Well, that's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows you have seen, and here is the way to contact us.
Islam and Life welcomes your opinion. So please send us your suggestions as well as criticism on any of the shows you've seen or would like to see. You can share your thoughts with other Islam and Life fans, engage with debate, and view past shows on our social media platforms. Tweet us at Islam and Life TV or join us on Facebook by liking our page Islam and Life on Press TV.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Raza Kadim. Thank you so much for your presence and your input. And I hope to see you next week, inshallah.